So, little prep on this thing. This is the Am I Ready to Start a Business workshop. If your microphone is muted, that's great. If you got, like I said, if you got something to say that is real urgent, definitely just speak up or hang on to it, make a note of it, and we'll talk about it at the end. The little bit about SCORE. SCORE is the nation's largest network of volunteer expert business mentors with over 10,000 volunteers and 300 chapters around the United States. We're a resource partner of the USBA, Small Business Administration. We don't do loans. We don't engage in that type of SBA programming, but we fall under their purview. So that's how we're funded through the SBA. SCORE has helped more than 10 million entrepreneurs through mentoring workshops and educational resources since 1964 when it was founded. Nashville, we've got 60 volunteers here in Nashville. It's about 30 full-time mentors, and we have 30 SME, special material experts that can jump in and help us with very specific needs as they arise. We provide mentoring and counseling, workshops, special events. There's a SCORE on business television show on the Circle Network. And all those shows can also are on YouTube, so you can search Nashville SCORE on YouTube and look at those. And we tend to have one of our SMEs does interviews with SCORE people who have gone through our program and other experts talking about business events and issues. Go to the scorenashville.org. Actually, it's score.org/Nashville is how it's presented now. And you get to our local chapter's website. I'll bring this up a couple of times during this thing, and it comes down here. This is where you find a counselor or mentor, find and sign up for our workshops and resource materials. On this website, if you go to the resource materials and click through that, there's just a plethora of really extraordinary content in there, videos on just about every aspect of business that there is. There's guides and templates. You get a template for a business plan, templates for financial projections, how to do it. There's videos and education material on SEO, building websites, how to market, social media, human resources, just about everything you can think of is in there. And one of the nice things about the content you'll find on the SCORE website is there's no spin to it. There was no intent to guide you in a specific direction. It wasn't produced by a commercial enterprise. It's their intent is to get you to buy something or to deal something with them. So it's all just really solid content. So I find that it's really valuable. Take advantage of it. So typically within the SCORE organization, if you choose to get engaged with a mentor, we through SCORE, we're assigned for the life of the business. Personally, I've got involved 5 years ago when I moved here from Nashville or from Denver, and I'm still working with a couple of people that I met 4 years ago. And every now and then we get together and talk about the businesses that we help put together and that they're running now. Typically, the mentor will be what we call a generalist. So someone like myself and wore just about every hat there is. I've got patents, trademarks, I've bought products, sold products, I've sold businesses, acquired businesses, started, launched businesses. I've had sole proprietorships, partnerships, subchapter S. I just closed my last C Corp. So I've got worn a lot of hats. So that's generally what you call as a generalist. We got a lot of skill sets. You get into something that someone like myself doesn't have a particularly strong background in, we can go to subject matter experts, people who have really deep knowledge in very specific areas that will join us as a co-mentor. We can also reach out to people throughout the United States, into all that 60,000 people, and find people. One of the few people in SCORE who's created a fitness product and took it from concept actually to market. So I'm co-mentoring, I think it's 6 individuals throughout the United States right now that are trying to launch new fitness ideas. And there's never a charge to the client. So it's a free program through the National for the Score program. Now that you've signed up for this, you will start getting emails that announce when these other workshops are taking place. Like the next one may be how to start a business. If you choose it after listening to this, you go, okay, I'm going to start a business. The next one may be how to start a business. The next one, business modeling, vetting your business ideas for whatever. If you choose to start a business, I highly recommend taking the business modeling workshop. It's put on once a month by one of our peers who's been doing it for 10 years. It's a 3-hour workshop, costs $25, but it's 3 hours of just everything you can imagine that you need to know to be successful in your enterprise. We will touch on it a little bit as we get into the slide into our presentation, but because I want to bring that up a couple of times. It's just, I've taken it. It's extraordinary. I wish I had learned this 50 years ago. I could have avoided so many mistakes. Workshops on how to write a business plan, accounting fundamentals, financial projections, market research, building a brand, social media, understanding business taxes. We also do what's called lunch and learn, one-time workshops on web design, sales training, crowdfunding, all these different categories. And you will get emails that announcing that when these things are taking place, so you can sign up for them. If you choose to start your own business, I highly recommend you really dig into this stuff. The most successful business people I've met in the past 50 years that I've studied, that I'm aware of, take business and they turn it into it is a skill. You can go to college and get a PhD in business administration and become a student of business. You choose to do this, actually immerse yourself in everything that you can find in every aspect of business building, business operations, from just everything. Just become a student of business. It'll improve your chances of success, guaranteed. Some of the topics we're going to touch tonight is the motivation. What motivates people to start a business? What's a self-inventory? Entrepreneurial traits that are really important to have as you make this, if you choose to make this journey. There are things that become really important that you could have. And
Hey
Cal,
Lee,
yeah,
is it okay? Hey, this is Kate. I don't know. Is
yeah,
it okay if I just hop in and ask a question?
sure.
Um, so hey, thanks for having us tonight. When before you got into the workshop discussion topics, you were talking about a lot of different resources. Could I ask you, so I'm in West Tennessee, and there is also something called the Tennessee Small Business Development Center, like at Dyersburg State Community College. Like I'm kind of I'm going like lots of resources out there, and I'm trying to understand like kind of the different layers. Do you have any understanding of what that organization does? Is it like part of like the SBA funded like outreach that kind of goes out through the state, or is it something totally different?
It's different. I'm not familiar with that, but
Okay.
most likely it is different because we have a entrepreneur center here in Nashville that's
Okay.
completely different from everything of this. We're a federally funded organization. At least our
Okay.
organization is, like, we're all volunteers, but there is funding out there to keep the website up and running.
Sure.
Um, and then colleges will start regional operations, will run these kinds of business developments. It's important for communities, districts to
Mm-hmm.
launch. I mean, 80% of revenue in America is started in small business. I mean, this is the lifeblood of American commerce. And this is where the funding comes from, and this is where the taxes come from. So dig into those kinds of things. I would definitely reach out and say, hey, what do you guys do? What can I learn from you?
Yeah, that sounds good. And that may be part of it. Like if the score in that kind of orbit of resources is federally funded, that might be a state thing. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it could be a state or it could be a regional thing. Now, we do
Sure.
have a Memphis, there's a score office in Memphis
Hmm.
that you could sign up and get time. In fact, I normally recommend you go to the local. If you're in West Tennessee, go to Memphis,
Yeah. Okay.
because
Awesome.
the mentors in Memphis would have more information on what's
Mm-hmm.
happening on local in West Tennessee, as
Perfect.
opposed to us in the Middle Tennessee area. Okay,
Right. Okay, awesome. Thanks.
you bet.
Hey, Lee,
Yeah.
just to follow up on her question, that organization, I believe, is part of the Tennessee Economic Development.
Okay. Yeah, so the state economic development programs, they fund region because there's a real desire right now at national and state levels is to really support small business.
Yeah,
So
you should check out their website. They got a ton of stuff on their website.
yeah. Okay, very good. So some of the other topics we'll talk about, that entrepreneurial traits, business planning elements, resource evaluation, other considerations. We'll get through a summary and then we'll jump into next steps. Because we do have 18 of us, it's a little much for us to jump in and give everybody 3 minutes. It'll take up 30% of the entire workshop. So we're pass on this one. But if you stick around at the end, I would love to hear what you've got in mind, and then we could discuss that amongst everybody who wants to stick around and talk about ideas and what your motivations are. So some of the most common motivations start a business, and we got a few thoughts about each of these. One is I need a job, I need benefits, and I need long-term financial security. If that's the motivation, and it is for a lot of people, got to understand it's not the fastest way to a steady paycheck. Starting a business, as a rule, takes time. Now, there is a unicorn out there every now and when you start something, it goes viral, and all of a sudden, careful what you wish for, you just may get it. Which is the fastest way to lose a business, is to grow so fast that you can't manage it. And everybody else catches, oh my God, there's this great idea somebody's got, we're going to jump in and take advantage of it. Slow and steady really is a great way to build a business, to iron out and get your operations and everything done. If you've got health considerations and the objective is to start a business so you could get access to insurance, understanding that if you have your own company, you will pay for your own insurance. You will be responsible for your own benefits. As an entrepreneur, business owner, if you want a 2-week paid vacation, you're going to pay yourself for 2 weeks. So that's just how that kind of thing works. I know people who start a business because they don't like to work. I think getting your own business, as a rule, you'll work a whole lot more than you on your own business than you will working for somebody else. So if you don't like working, starting your own company is probably not the best idea. There's this way to buy a job versus getting a job, and creating a job versus actually getting one. So that's kind of a motivation, to get and find a job. A lot of entrepreneurs, as a rule, will have an idea and see an opportunity. And this is really how I've started all my companies. I was able to identify a pain point or a problem, like in the aerobics business during the heyday of the high impact aerobics. Everybody was doing it on carpeted concrete. And the instructors were all coming up with shin splints and bad knees and bad ankles and bad hips, and it was painful. Took a flooring system I designed for boxing rings, put it under the carpets in my aerobics room in my club in Loveland, Colorado, and I had instructors driving 60 miles to teach in my club because it was easy on their knees. And that's when my members kept going, well, how come the instructors got a padded, podium and we don't? And it turned into a big deal, sold about 20,000 floor systems. So identifying ideas and opportunities. People will start a business because they've always wanted to be in a specific business. There's a lot of people, and we're here, a lot of people have grown up, they always wanted to sing country music or music, period. They always want to play guitar in a band. There's one way to go start, create yourself starting business and get into it. You have a hobby or avocation that you've turned into a business. I'm working with a couple of people that made cookies on weekends and people loved them. Why don't you turn that into a business? They started selling them in flea markets and farmers markets, and they've turned them into businesses. You have a trader's skill that you've learned in prior experience or you're involved in right now, and you want to actually capitalize on that. And instead of working for somebody else with that skill or trade, take all the benefit and, put it in direct it to yourself. It's a great way to justification in starting a business. One of the things that you do need to do if you start a business is properly test that, and it's called a proof of concept. We will get into that as we get into that business modeling in a little bit more how to properly test a proof of concept. If you get your business, and personal satisfaction could be extraordinary high. If you're successful in your own business, personal satisfaction it can be really high, but it can also be really low if it's not working. And like I said, there are peaks and valleys in most businesses. A lot of businesses make all their money in the fourth quarter during Christmas, and the other first, second, third quarter will break even or even lose money. So depending on the type of business that you're running. So it can be really high and can be really low. Just got to understand that those are possibilities is when you're going in and understanding and acknowledge the fact that this is what you can experience. Passion translates into sales and service. That's one thing about entrepreneurs. If you always wanted to be a musician and you've got that passion, and the people around you, the people you present yourself to, passion translates into sales. It's really, really even more important today because of the social media concepts and what we can do on video. On a one-on-one niching, you're niching yourself into a specific area and talking directly to your potential customers. They respond to passion. And then one of the things of having an opportunity or seeing an opportunity, are you capable of following through on details? People will start businesses based on a family history. A lot of people have grown up in the family businesses and either want to take over the business or they actually want to go out and they want to go out and create their own enterprise. And so there's the experience that you could take and then go out there and move it into your own company. There are people who want to start a business and their desire is to involve family members or friends, and it can be tricky. These are relationships based on money, as opposed to passion and devotion and personal relationships. So they can be tricky. That can be addressed as you build those businesses and form these partnerships with families and family members and friends. And there's something a mentor can really help you do, is build into your operational statements and your organizational statements the kind of things like buy-sell agreements. Because if you've got more than one owner, you really want a buy-sell agreement that identifies and outlines what happens if one of these people wants out of this deal and how that's going to happen, and memorialize it, get it in paper, get it notarized, because you can always fall back on it and say, hey, wait, because a couple years into the deal, most everybody forgot exactly what was, the handshakes that were made during the startup. So having a succession plan for the next generation is also not smooth if you want to pass it on to kids. Building some generational wealth that you could pass on. It's not always smooth, but it can be made much more easy and much smoother if you identify that as something that you wish to do at some point in time. Maybe it's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, and structure your organizational structure and your foundation allows for that transition in the best of ways. It's another thing a mentor can help identify things you can do in order to make that transition as smooth as possible. You want to make sure that your business model will provide the long-term economic security, particularly if there's more than one person in there. If you got 2 partners, 3 partners, or there's 4 people are starting the business, you really want to make sure that you can generate enough income to support all 4 of those people. And that can be done through really detailing your financial projections to make sure what it is you have in mind in terms of pricing, and how much, pre-tax profits that you can drag to the bottom line. A lot of people start the business because they want to be their own boss, control their own destiny. That really does sound good at first, but you really need to be realistic, because the owner does what needs to get done. I had 3 factories in the 1980s building boxing equipment for Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard and amateur fighters, and shipping it all over the world. Had 200 employees, and on Sundays I went in and cleaned toilets, and I ran the company. If it needs to get done, the boss tends to go do it. If a truck showed up on on a Saturday afternoon, nobody else was there, I'm the one who went down and unloaded the truck, got on a forklift and took it out. So the owner does what needs to get done. And that requires some discipline and commitment. So you really got to be prepared to make those kind of commitments, and the discipline to actually follow through on this, because it will happen. Particularly with today, because you're never too far away from work issues. Earlier this year, I was in the Middle East, and every morning, over in Dubai, I got up, logged on, and answered customer questions and processed orders. So you're never too far away today. It's not like on Friday afternoon, you could just do nothing until Monday, because nobody could get a hold of you. They can get a hold of you 24/7 now. So that's another thing to, really dig in and say, am I prepared to do that? Am I prepared to make those kind of commitments? Your owner composition of money, amount of making money, will depend on your cash flow, your profitability. As I said earlier, there's some industries are very seasonal, and there may be some downtime where you just maybe break even, and then you get to your high season in the Christmas season, or maybe it's in the sporting goods markets. It tends to be just pre-sports seasons. You make all your money prior to the baseball, softball season, prior to the football season, and then during those seasons, nobody's coming in and buying stuff from you because they bought everything they needed, and being prepped for the season. So that there's your peaks and valleys again. You may not have anybody exchange ideas with. That's one of the things that's nice about having a mentor, with someone from SCORE, where you could just get a hold of one of us and whiteboard stuff. Here's an idea. What do you think? I ran into this problem. What do you think? I also suggest that if you just choose to start a business, depending on what the industry is, maybe reach out to somebody who does what you do in Omaha, or Pittsburgh, or Miami, or LA, and just say, hey, I'm going to start a business doing exactly what you're doing. Could you mind spending some time with me? I have found that most people will be really open to doing that, because sharing ideas helps everybody involved in the ideas. You may even start your own little meetup group, start a Facebook group with people doing what you do, as long as you're not competing with them. You may even get 5 or 6 of you together, and you can buy a little buying group. If they say no, no harm done. But I've never walked away from a no without asking somebody, thank you, I appreciate your time. Do you know somebody who would? And often people go, oh yeah, I'm not interested, but you ought to give so-and-so a call. They do this kind of stuff all the time. Never walk away from a no without asking for a referral. Now, there's something, if you want to be your own boss, I really believe this one. Who is actually the boss? Number one, your customers. It came about years and years ago when I first got into business. There was a thing, if you made somebody happy, they had 5 friends, and you pissed them off, they had 10. In today's world, you piss them off, they could have 1 million friends. So customers are key. Customers become your most valuable asset. You build a company and somebody wants to buy that company from you, really all they're buying is your customers, because that's your most valuable asset, your brand and your customers. So treating your customers like polished gold is absolutely necessary in these days. And I suspect everybody on this call right now has run into some industry, walked in and the employee treated you like, dismissed you. It wasn't very good, a very good experience. In fact, most people in the cable industry found this on a daily basis. But you treat these customers like gold. Now, if you have employees, if your company is going to have employees, who actually interfaces with your customers? It's your employees. So you better treat them nice, because if they don't feel respected and they don't feel like a part of the organization, that will pass down to your most important asset, and that will cause damage. And then if you borrow money from somebody or you bring in partners or investors, I really believe this, and I've done this. I've borrowed lots and lots and lots of money. Investors get paid before I ever took a nickel. They were always first in line for distributions. Now, if you treat them that way, because they gave you their money and they trusted you, you honor that trust by honoring that commitment you've made to them. Do that, and as you build through your entrepreneurial trait and your business trait, if you ever have to go back, probably back to the trough and go back and ask for second stage investments, it's a whole lot easier to do that when you've treated the investors right in the first place. So those kind of that chain of command. The boss, if there's ever a problem, look in the mirror. That's whose problem it is. So as the boss, customers, employees, investors, and partners, very important to treat them all, with respect. So if you can start a business to increase your return on investment, because obviously you could take, if you got 50 grand laying around, everybody does, but whatever you want to start your company with, you could take that capital and put it into, some kind of an investment instrument, savings loan, and get a couple percent. So ideally, you take that capital and put it into a business for a higher return or a higher return on your investment. And then in order to analyze the potential return on that investment in the business valuation, this is where it really helps to take your model, your business, and really build out a really detailed financial projections. Run the financial projections out for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. Be conservative in the growth. Very few companies ever make money in the first year. And just honor the fact that you're just not going to make any money in the first year as you're growing. It's possible, but it's just not normal. And to make sure that you've got the revenue, all your overhead, your expenses, your cost of goods sold, factoring that in to make sure that those financial projections will show those numbers. So really, it comes out in the business valuation can be a percentage or a multiple of what it is that you're getting for profit. So you can come up with some really detailed information that helps guide you through building your business and making decisions by doing that, those financial projections. Time required to get the original investment, because say you invest $50,000 into your company. You want to identify when are you going to get your 50 grand back, and how long is that going to take? Too many people put that money in and think, okay, here's my startup capital, and then they start from zero and try to figure out how much money they're going to make. Well, that's the original investment needs to be returned in some form or fashion over a designated period of time, in order to really be accurate in your projections. So you need to think like an investor, risk versus reward. And there's starting your own company. There's a good example of that is like if you wanted to do an app for an Apple phone. Those things can cost anywhere from a couple. I was working with one guy, I wanted to do one in the music business. It was $250,000. And I'm also working with another lady who's creating an app right now for family management. And she's looking at about putting 600,000 into hers. Now, one thing, if you do an app and it gets onto the Apple store, start shopping for your own private island, because it's definitely, it's profitable. I think only 3 or 4% of the apps that are created ever actually make any money. But if you make it, it's good stuff. But that's thinking like an investor. What's the risk versus the reward? The higher the risk, greater the reward. You also got to understand and acknowledge the fact that if you, whatever you're going to do, your time, your money, all the investment you get in this thing stuff may not be recovered. Not every business succeeds. I would say this, the fact that you're actually here listening to this is an indication to me that you've acknowledged the fact that you need to know more, that you're interested in learning. That increases your chance of success should you choose to start a business. The chance of you succeeding because of acknowledging the fact you don't know everything increases your chance of success exponentially. It's just keep learning. You just soak up all the information you can. You hear things that I say, you go, ah, that's interesting. It doesn't apply to me at all. Maybe it doesn't today, but in a couple of years, you go, I remember that guy said this. Maybe we could go do this. So learning everything, keep an open mind, just absorb the stuff. Then you also got your long and short-term strategies. What is your vision for what it is you're going to do in 5, 10, 20 years? I always build my business plans and my financial projections in 1, 3, 5, and 10 years. And by having those kind of projections, I can plan today for what I'm going to be doing in 5 years. It's interesting to have data. It's a little tougher, particularly if you're in the product business right now, trying to figure out what your product's going to cost. Like a good friend who imports for about 50 different medical companies from China. And he calls me twice a day, and I'm afraid the guy's going to have a heart attack because his customers are all going, what are we going to pay for it? I have no idea. They got containers on the water, and they have no idea what's going to cost when it actually gets to the country. So these are threats to your business. It's like creating your own SWOT analysis. What are your strengths and weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats? It's one of the things in building into your business plan. What happens if we have a measles pandemic? Be prepared for it. What can you do to pivot? How can you have, what if one of your vendors go bankrupt? You have a redundancy, you have backup suppliers. So all these things got to be built in. Another thing, mentors can really help you identify those things and build them into your plans. Entrepreneurial spirit. Entrepreneurs tend to have, as a rule, a desire to see ideas converted into reality. It's your idea. You suspect most of you are like this. You got a head full of ideas, and you're just, your intent is how can I take that and convert it into something that's got value? You want to try something that's new and creative. Typically, entrepreneurs do have a high tolerance for risk. Security, that little thing. Security is always a concern. So you can't sit and walk around going, hey, if I go broke, I don't care. Particularly if you got a family. If you got people relying on you for funding and food and a roof over their heads. So security is a concern, but you have a high tolerance for risk. And how do you manage the risk? Do what you're doing right now, is sitting down and listening to things, learning about running a business and how to do that so you minimize the risk. Entrepreneurs have a strong belief in their skills and capabilities. They're and they may be idea generators, but not good operators. This I've run into, and I've invested in companies, and I've identified without knowing that this is something I should have looked out for. Entrepreneurs tend to have a ton of things in their head, always ideas. I could do this, I do this. And at some point, you got to stop generating ideas, settle on something, and build on it. And then add your ideas into as the future, into the grow. But you really got to focus on one thing in order to accomplish and get a business foundation up. And once you're profitable, you can do just about anything, but you got to get profitable first. And if you're not a good operator, and that's dealing with details, like if you're just not, you just don't like sitting around and doing accounting, then plan in your business plan to hire somebody who is a good operator. If you don't like to handle customer complaints, you're going to have to find somebody to do it. There's one thing about humans. We can choose to be as good at anything as we choose to be. So if you're not a good operator, you can choose to be a much better operator. You can choose to change the way that your paradigm that you will dot I's and cross T's. You just put it in your head and you make a dedicated effort to become different. Entrepreneurs should have an exit strategy. And this is going into these, what are your plans? How are you going to get out of this thing? And if you know what you're going to do, or you have a vision for what you're going to do, you're going to pass it on to kids. You're going to sell it to nephew or somebody. You're going to turn it into a franchise. You want to have 10 locations in 10 years. And at that point, you want to sell it to somebody. You want to build something and put it on the market and merge it with somebody. Develop what those exit strategies could be in the front, because in 5 years, you decide, oh my God, I got an opportunity to franchise this. You're going to have to go back 5 years and start developing everything you've done for 5 years. Because that's the before you get a license and you can legally do franchise, you need to have 2 to 3 years of operating documentation in order to give that to somebody else who could replicate your business. So if the exit strategy is to sell it, but you start doing what you need to do today. So when you want to exit, everything, your ducks are all in a row. Always have a plan B if things don't work out. I said this, and there's nothing against used car salespeople, but I've always said if everything just collapsed on me, I could be one of the best damn used car salesmen there is. Now, by having a plan B, knowing that there's a fallback position and knowing it in your head that if it just goes to hell, you know where you're going to go next, allows you to make decisions without having a lot of data around to make them. You can make decisions based on gut, much easier because you know if it's wrong, there's a backup plan. If everything is hinging and is hanging on everything you do, you can really get all tied up in making decisions. Have that plan B, put it on paper, memorialize your plan B, so you know if things don't work out, you've got somewhere to go. This is just a question for you to just to ponder. Do you feel your motivation is strong enough to proceed with the hard work involved in launching a business? When you will get a copy of this PowerPoint sometime in the next couple of days, and this particular questionnaire will show up just in black, so you could print it off and actually fill it out. And all these documents will at the end tail is, I'll show you some of this stuff, but you'll get a lot of things that you could print out and workbooks and worksheets and additional information that we're not going to cover here, but all pertaining to the topics that we're discussing. So a low score would be 1. And then if you have a work ethic and you put 1, I guess my work ethic sucks. That is a concern. Now, but there is one thing: you can choose to improve your work ethic. That's one thing that we can do as humans, is just make a decision to do something better. If you put 5 down in all these things, I'd be concerned, because you may be overestimating your actual skill sets. So you're the only ones who are ever going to see this thing. So be real honest as you go through this thing, if you choose to. Be real honest, because if it identifies things like time management, if yourself and go, I don't manage time well, I'm always late. I don't get things done. The bills are always 3 weeks after they're due. I can't, be better, because you really need, all these things are very important in running all your business. Decision making without facts, learning from your mistakes, acknowledging the fact that you made a mistake. It's amazing how many people I've run into that as soon as something goes wrong, they got to point their finger at somebody else. Oh, that's somebody. I didn't do that. I didn't know. And owning a mistake, acknowledging the mistake, recognizing what went wrong, then moving forward, don't do it again. Learning from mistake is really important. Persistence, you've got to stay engaged. A lot of people, I think the music industry is another good example of that. You hear people they become famous after 10 years, and they've heard no 10,000 times. That's how you run a business. You'll hear no, 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 till you figure out how to get people to say yes. And you never know when it's that one person going to say yes, and everything just changes. Having a support system, you really want your family to be engaged. If you've got a family and there are people relying on you, or just people that are friends of yours, that are close to you, they are behind you because there will be trying times. And they're in a family situation, you may be a little tight on money, during some period or during the startup. And you want them to know and be engaged with you. That's important. This one up here, experience in the field. If you don't have experience, in fact, I had a 2-hour conference with a client this day. He wants to build a pickleball facility. First thing he sent me his business plan. He must got 100 hours in his business plan. First thing I asked him, I says, have you ever run a membership-based business? No, I work for, I'm in the medical business. I sell medical services. Says, well, any investors invest in people who can take a good idea and operate it. Says, if you don't have experience in what the field that you're going to go into, go get it in some form or fashion. I've got a couple of people that I've worked with over the years. They went out and they did apprenticeships. They worked for free for 3 months. One of them wanted to build a kind of resort using remodeled, refurbished old travel trailers. But he has no skill in running a deal. He went out and got a job with a campground. And not a job, as an apprentice. He worked for 4 months for him for free. He was able to be able to do that, but he learned how to run a resort. And now he's in the process of looking land to put these trailers on. So there are ways to go out there and improve in all these things to get you to a point where you've got the skills and the aptitudes to out there and accomplish what it is that you're looking to do. Because understanding business risk is uncertainty. It's not good or bad. It's just risk. And generally, the greater the risk, greater the reward. That's the example of those apps. Great risk, great reward. But in measuring those things, so how do you measure those things? Because they have 3 components. The magnitude, how much can I lose? Well, you can lose it all. And that's managing, within your own personal, asset base and your own financial stability, financial picture, how much you put at risk. So understanding how much that could be lost if everything doesn't work. What's the probability it's going to happen? You can minimize the risk by what we just talked about. You're becoming a student of what you're doing, getting the skills, understanding and knowing all the aspects of what's going on, having a deep understanding of everything can minimize the risk, which lowers the probability of that risk. Exposure, that's not insurance against loss, but that's minimizing the exposure, and that's doing the necessary things, getting your business plan, understanding your product, your pricing, really identifying your market segments, really understanding what it is you're going to do so you can go out there and maximize your opportunity for success. There's a couple of questions. Again, these are just for you to think on. Do you have to score high in every category? Absolutely not. If you really don't have a skill and have no desire to become, to really be good in one of those areas, build a team with complementary skills and manage them to get your desired result. And how can you improve areas you need to work on? So often moving from low to neutral or low to high is more beneficial than moving from neutral to high. So really understanding where your challenges are and getting better at them. So number one thing in any business, the number one thing that you really want to do is identify what your business, your product or service needs to have a value proposition. And that value proposition is, how do you eliminate or address a customer's pain, needs, or challenges? And can your value proposition, your product or service relieve or manage the gains, those pains, and help them create the gain. How can you improve your customers' jobs or lives? Anything that you're going to do, ideally, you're creating something that your customer wants to buy, not what you want them to buy. That's a common mistake. I've made that mistake. It's cost me millions. I did my first website cost $800,000 in 1999, and I was in the medical products business, and I had built-in affiliate programs and partnerships and relationships. And if it would have worked, me and Bezos would be flying our own rockets to the moon right now. It didn't work because I got really stubborn, and I wanted my people to buy what I wanted them to have. They just wanted some place to send their customers to buy stuff. And I didn't pick up on that, and the thing didn't work. It's one of the only ones I had that didn't work. But you want to sell people what they want to buy, not what you want them to have. So identify what their pains are, their challenges are, and give them something that they want that'll help them. Understanding who or what your competition is. So once you identify who the competitors are, then you can craft a product or service in that market space that's got some unique advantages to it. And that becomes your unique sales proposition or your unique sales advantage. This is how you position yourself against somebody else. We've got a lot of people that there may be some here that want to be notaries. Well, I didn't realize until I had a client who wanted to be a notary, and I looked it up, and there's a lot of notaries out there, and they will travel. They will go anywhere to notarize things, and they'll do corporate contracts, and they do with lawyers. How do you differentiate your system if you're going to get into notary? How do you change it in terms of billing, service, timing, packaging? How do you make it different or unique so people will buy from you as opposed to other people? Then how do you market that value proposition? And what resources and activities are required to create, market, and distribute the value proposition? And how can you build a model that incorporates all those? And this is where we go to the business model canvas, which really gets into this. This is, again, you'll get a slide on this that doesn't have all the colors in it, so you can print it. You can actually write in this thing. But these are all the things that you really need. So these 9 elements here is having a very deep understanding of each one, how they interface and interact with each of the others. And if you've got that and you've got it in your plan and you understand all this stuff, your chances of succeeding in whatever you choose to do greatly increase, because this is it. This is the business model. And 2 of the best things is the value proposition. What is your product offering your potential customer that will solve their problem? That they're looking and they're going, God, I wish I had something that would keep my beer cold. And you come out, well, how about a beer coolie? Well, there's a lot of them out there. Maybe you could improve the beer coolie. It's possible. People have done it. There's versions of these things all over the place now. But there's kind of the thing. What's your value proposition? What are you going to solve the problem? And then the other one, because we have this little yellow dot there, the second most important thing is your customer, is really understanding your customer. What do they want to buy? Really deeply understanding what they want. And you can niche your customer down to, you can bring them down to age, man or woman. You can get them in revenue, how much money they got, where do they live, political, sexual preferences, religious preferences, just anything. You can actually get into nationalities, all these things, and breaking your customer segment. You could have 5 different customer segments. Your value proposition may solve their problems, but you would you may talk to each of them a little bit differently. I make portable obstacle courses for physical education teachers. I also make them for personal trainers, and I make them I've got the Chicago Bears have got one. So does Penn State's football team. When I talk to a PE teacher, I do not use the same language when I talk to a professional sports conditioning specialist. Totally same product, accomplishes the same thing, but you don't talk to them like a 2-year-old. These PhDs in sports conditioning, they want to know, muscle engagement and how it affects VO2 capacities. And PE teachers want to know, is it fun? Totally different, same product, going to 2 different market segments with different understandings. So, and we get into these, the differentiations. Once you have an idea of your customers need or want, you have those resources. Oops, something happened there. Let me go back. Shoot. Sorry here, folks. Oh, darn. Okay, I'm going to go back here. I loaded up the wrong one. Sorry. There's another one that breaks each one of these things down different slides, but we can sure get through this one right here. So you want to know what your key partners are. Your partners are your financial. Who's who's going to finance this thing if you need it? Who's going to supply the product? Are you need a special warehousing? Are you going to have to lease something? So these are all the people that you're going to, it's the people and institutions you're going to need as partners in order to get your business up and run. Your key activities, are you going to do social media marketing? How are you going to put your product out there? Are you going to do any cause marketing? Partner with other people. I'm a big fan of synergistic relationships, finding other companies who are already connected to your potential, your ideal customer, creating a partner with them and offering your service to their customers in such a way that both parties get what they want, because ideally they have a credibility and authority with customers, and then you could take advantage of it by partnering with them. Your key resources, you're gonna need ad materials, creative materials and logos. You're gonna need a website. So these are the resources you got to pull together, understanding all these things as it relates to what it is you're gonna do. Identifying all the value propositions that you have in your product or services and how you differentiate yourself from the competitions out there. Customer relationships. This is a great way. This is buy 5, get 1 free. If you're at a restaurant, you get a little punch ticket. You're going to do follow-up. How are you going to create long-term relationships with these customers? How many channels are you going to go through? Are you going to have brick and mortar? Are you going to go mail order, website? You're just going to make whatever it is you're going to subcontract it to somebody else, like a distribution network, wholesale. How are you, all these channels? And you could have 3 or 4 different channels for taking your product or service and getting it to the customer segments. And that just identifies, once you really understand the cost structure, everything necessary to provide the cost of goods sold, to provide your product and deliver it, and then service it after it's been delivered, because that's also a cost that's got to go into it. If you're in the internet business, figuring in what your return rates are. If you sell shoes online, statistically, 30% of every order will come back to you, because shoes are hard to fit online. If they don't fit, they come back. Zapdos figures out the cost of returns is built into their cost structure. So they've got that kind of experience. It's built into my cost structures. Thank God I don't have, no one's ever returned one of my obstacle courses, but I did have other products that people will return. Revenue streams. How many different revenue streams can you generate with your enterprise? You could, if you're selling direct, selling wholesale, you could be online, wholesale, and then selling at farmers markets. There's 3 different identified revenue streams. You could, it's a product, you could private label it for somebody, and then it becomes it could be there's a 4th revenue stream. So those are all really digging into it. Go take that website. If you don't want to take the website, there's a video, a 1-hour video on our the SCORE website that goes through this and really digs into it. The live version is much better, but this one, the video ain't bad either. So once you have an idea of what the customer's needs and wants are, do you have all the resources, access to the resources necessary? Do you have capital to invest? The banks are getting a little looser today. We get regular updates from people like SBA as to what the financial markets are looking at, because there's a real desire. Small business generates more jobs than most industries. This whole thing of bringing manufacturing back, small manufacturing, I think, can come back and start picking up some of the space. But it'll be interesting if you can get, just bring all car manufacturing to this country. So there's a desire to finance, but you will have to have all banks and traditional financing want to know, what the debts and credit rating are, and they will ask for traditional. They will want leverage and collateral. If you're going to the traditional financing side. You want to make sure that whatever you're doing, the cost of living and family support needs can be funded while you're doing this. So that's part of that financial projections, understanding the cost, how much you're going to need, when you're going to need it, when you can start understanding when there's going to be a return on these investments. Just about I've started a half a dozen of my companies borrowing money from fams and friendly. Started a couple of my credit cards, not recommended, but back then, the credit cards were just a little cheaper, and smaller business turned into a big business, but you can do that. So friends and family are typically the best are traditionally capital sources for startups. And there's a good way to do that and really treat, if you're borrowing money from friends and family, do actual loan documents, identify percentage rates, when interest is due, what happens in default, have it signed, because really there's a challenge, and all of a sudden friends and family tend to forget what the original agreement was 10 years from now. You want to be able to pull a paper and say, hey, we agreed on this thing, and that it can minimize challenges. Collateral value, if you've got to secure debt, if you've got it available based on personal needs, it's valuable. You can build a business with current employment income by bootstrapping. And that's just start your business in the evenings and on weekends. Bootstrapping is basically trying to do it for nothing, and to prove your proof of concept, identify your customer, find out what response rates are, and all these kind of things you can do like that. And just decide this is how I'm going to do it to come out of that proof of concept that people will actually buy my idea at the price that I need, based on what I've determined I have to have in order to provide it and make a profit off of it. If you need physical facilities, identifying what those are, like warehouses, you need office space. You just really need to identify those in your business plan. I'm going to have this, and then go out and figure out what's available to you. Can you afford it? And is your facility even out there? Are you going to have to hire somebody? If you hire somebody, identifying what their skill sets are going to have, and are those skills actually available in the local population? There's some very specialized jobs out there where finding people who actually have the skills to do them may not even be possible here. And having access to mentors. It's either through SCORE, or, like I said earlier, reaching out into just cold calling people in other cities or states, saying, hey, I'm going to do what you're doing. Could you help me? And I said, more often than not, they're thrilled to do it. So, entrepreneur planning process. So the first thing to do is come up with a vision statement. This is future art, and that's where you want to be in 10 years, 5 years, or 10 years. That's your vision statement. Your mission statement is your present day focus. And that's identifying what you do, how you do it, and why you do it. And if anybody ever asks you about your company, be able to tell them what you do, how you do it, and why you do it, and have a very clear description of all three of those. That's really helpful, because that's key. is knowing what you do, how you do it, and why you do it. Statement of strategy is your overall method or plan to bring around those desired future goals. So that's in the business plan. That's your detail, your steps. Okay, here's how I'm going to go about doing this thing. I've got to do some research. I got to do a focus groups. I've got to build a prototype and put it in front of people and see what they think, and those types of things. Tactical plans are detailed steps to achieve those goals. So that's coming out since it actually doing a GoFundMe, program is actually, who is going to do the mechanical drawings of the product I'm creating? Who's going to create the, where do I have to go to understand what all the regulations are in my particular category of product? How do I get my trademarks? Do I need a trademark? What kind of a structure do I need? Those are all important setups. And then the feedback loop. Results of those steps can reflect in your financial. Always talk to your finance. Always look to your clients. In every business I had, when somebody bought a product, like my obstacle course, I've sold about 2,000 of these things. Every one of those people, 3 to 4 weeks after they got it, got a personal call from me going, how did I do? Is it what you expected? Is it working for you? Have you got any challenges? What would I do differently? Was the experience positive for you? You could send people a email questionnaire. I'm still old school. Call people. God, it's amazing when the owner of a company calls and says, "Hey, how did I do?" How important they feel. And when customers feel important and they feel respected and they feel valued, they will tell their friends about it. So client feedback, management observations, cause adjustments, any of all of the above as you go through that. So we got some other considerations here. Things like build, buy, or franchise. So you could start your own company, which is building one from scratch. You can buy one that's already out there, or you could actually go get a franchise. And there's a lot of franchises out there, just about every category of industry right now. So if you build your own, you get the reputation of whatever it is. It's got no reputation. You buy one, for better or worse, you're going to get the reputation that's in the business. If you get a franchise, the reputation you get is going to come from them. Location you decide, buy, usually you get where it is. If it's a fixed base business, you're going to get where it is. You buy the business and you can work out of your house, that's where it is. Usually franchises within the guidelines. Customers, build your own business, you got no customers. You buy business, you get the customers that business had, and then you would need a non-compete so that whoever you bought the business from doesn't open next door, because they will keep all the businesses that all the customers they used to have. So non-competes in purchasing existing businesses are important. Franchises within guidelines. So this is, if any of these are the 3 categories. We won't go through all of these things, but you'll get this feel. This chart will come in the email that you're going to get, and then there's also a couple of charts and the explanations that go into deeper detail on each one of these things. So understanding is the nature of the business. Is it home-based or is it outside? That would determine the nature of the business. Is something, if you're going to do, let's see, diesel mechanics, diesel repair, can't do that in cul-de-sacs. It's pretty, HOAs they frown on that kind of stuff. So understanding, can you do it out of a home, or you're going to have to do it outside? What are the overhead is going to include? If you need a building, properties are really tight in Middle Tennessee right now. So we're growing really quickly, and the people who own the buildings are pricing it as such because there's a big demand. And what is your overhead going to be? Are you going to have CAM charges in terms of shared maintenance within the complex if you rent in a multi-unit facility? Zoning restrictions. So wherever you're going to do what you're gonna do, can you do it legally based on the zoning restrictions? If you lease a property that needs, you're gonna build, oh, guy's gonna do a pickleball, he's got a 22,000 square foot building, he's identified, he's gotta go out there and build it out and put 8 pickleballs, a restaurant, a coffee shop, and a bar in it. So the build out, you gotta come up, where's that build out money gonna come from? Is he gonna put it in? Or is the landlord gonna build it out for him and add it back into the lease? So understanding what the infrastructure needs are. Are you prepared if you need to lease something? You prepared to sign a lease? This particular gentleman is looking at 22,000 square feet, and he's done a intent to lease, and it's a 10-year commitment. And when I was talking to him this morning, I says, "Who's guaranteeing? Who's signing this?" Says, "I have to sign personally." I said, "You do know that $22,000 a month is your lease payment. If 2 years into this thing you go broke, this thing don't work, for 8 years, that landlord is expecting you to give him 22,000 bucks out of your pocket." And he's going, "No, that's not right." I'm going, "That's exactly how that works. You're signing a contract to pay 22,000 a month for 10 years. So make sure you've got a lease, sublease opportunity in there. So if you go broke and you can't do it, that you have the ability to go out there and sublease it to somebody else to take over those payments." At that point, he was going, "I think maybe I'm not going to do this." And then we discussed how to avoid that kind of stuff by maybe getting his landlord to become a partner of his. I've done that. As a landlord, I've become a partner in businesses that I've leased my properties to. Shared office space is a really great way of time. If you just need a couple of offices, companies all over Nashville, because of the home working thing and downsizing with employees and AI requiring fewer employees, lots of companies have a lot of empty space that you could sublease on a month-to-month basis if you need office. And I've done this. I've rented sublet 3 offices in a building downtown in Inverness Office Park down in Denver for 3 years. And I paid month to month, about 50 cents on the dollar what I would have had to pay had they were actually under my deal. And they came with completely furnished with phone systems. Great time. If you need office space, it's a good time to go do it. Work equipment, office storage space, you got to store things, and you have to do temporary storage. So you understanding what are your needs, and that goes into your business plan. So when you come up with your legal structure, how are you going to build the foundation, the legal foundation, or the corporate or business foundation for what it is you're going to do? So if you're going to do a sole owner, and this is just you doing what you do, you're on your own. Decision making is all yours. Multiple owners. Make sure that all the owners get their input. Allocate functions. Don't need to do it if you're the only owner. Multiple owners, absolutely. Access to capital. Sole owner, it's all you. And depending on what kind of multiple owners, what kind of ownership structure you have, who's going to share the investment capital. So then this is where I tend to suggest that if you've got a financial advisor, an accountant or something that knows your personal financial positions, is to really talk about them. Sole proprietorships work just fine for most companies, particularly in the startup phase. Because once you just go into a government website, in Tennessee, say I'm starting a company, choose sole proprietorship, you got a company. I think you give them 25 bucks or something, and you're registered. And you go to the feds and register for your employee EIN number, and then you just say I'm registered in Tennessee. Here's the name of my company. I'm a sole proprietorship. You've got everything you need. As you get bigger, you can choose, and you can upgrade, but just by clicking a different box, and you can become a limited liability corporation. LLCs, by design, are limited liability corporations, which limits the liability of that corporation. So if something were to happen in your company enterprise where somebody got hurt in your booth at a trade show, or they bought your product and it busted and they got hurt. So if there's liability exposure, an LLC will protect your personal assets. So in the case of that, they can go after the assets of the corporation, but they can't break through that corporate veil, provided whatever you're doing is legal. Then all your personal assets like your house and these kind of things can be protected. S corps if you're going to bring in outside investors like an angel investor, they may insist on you creating an S corp where you could actually issue stock certificates, and that would be done within an S corp. S corp revenues all still flow through to your personal returns, but S corps have to, LLCs and S corps, you got to file separate returns for them. The money still flows through like an LLC. C corps, totally different. If you plan to get to the big board on Wall Street, you need a C corp in order to go to Wall Street and get the major investors, sophisticated investors. They want to see a C corp because they want to take it public. That's for that. And your financial advisor or a mentor can even help decide which is best for you. And you don't need to do the biggest one first until you actually know it's up and going and you've got something running, so you can move these things around as needed. Some of the key factors for success is one is, do you have that proper motivation? Do you have a match between the value proposition and the customer's needs and wants? Again, are you selling them what they want to buy, not what you want them to have? So you're filling their needs and wants, not yours. Really important. You have access to funding, including the cash to make it beyond break even. If you've gone through your financial projection, you go, okay, I'm going to need, this gentleman I was talking to this morning needs $800,000 to get his thing up and running. Suggested, well, you got 800,000, that's your plan, that's your target. Just change that to 900. Make sure you won't need it, but you really want to have a bit access to something. If you get 90% done before you're ready to launch and you just ran out of money, it's having that backup that you know where you could go get that extra 10% in order to complete the project, so you can actually go. So figure out how much you need and then make sure you've got enough to get you beyond break even. Experience in the industry and in the education, and if you don't have that, go get it. It's the ability to go out and get there. You can read about it, you can go to school with it, you can watch the videos on it, and like I said, apprentice or actually get a job in that industry and spend a year learning it, because you really need to know what you're doing. The support system, advisors and family, everybody's behind you through thick and thin, understanding what the challenges are, the time to devote to the business and your strong work ethic, and the ability to make decisions in the absence of certainty, because you will be doing that, because decisions need to be made, and you just take all your accumulated information and data and you work off your gut, and you just pivot and you go in that direction. You know, if it's not right, acknowledge the fact, oops, I shouldn't have done that. Pivot, go in another direction. That's persistence. So if you're ready to proceed, you could request to meet with a SCORE mentor. That's just going to the score.org/Nashville. Click looking for a mentor. You'd fill out a little about what it is you're looking to do, because if we have somebody in our organization that has some experience in what it is you're doing, we would try to assign that person to you. We are all generalists, but if we've got specific skills, like they sent me the guy who's going to build a pickleball court, because I've built 2 health clubs, which are membership-based industries. So they assigned him to me because I've got some skill in that particular area. and just do that, and then get yourself a mentor. It's free. Have one meeting, and if you don't like it, you never have to come back. And if you do, you could be connected for a very long time. Attend more workshops. This kind of workshop, hopefully you got something out of this, and I'm sure you get information out of all the others. And even if you just got a nugget, one thing you go, bah, that's it. I could attach myself to that. That's the key to get me to where I want to go. It's really valuable. Quantify and obtain the necessary capital, and implement your plan and launch your business, and monitor and pivot as needed. Or if no, which is a perfectly good response to all this, is to modify and defer your plans until you're ready. And just keep digging into it, and keep learning, and before you actually really launch yourself into these things, because it's a commitment. And if it works, it's wonderful, but you really want to be prepared for it, or you jump in with both feet. So that's it. Thank you. Appreciate you spending some time with us here, or with me this evening, or Cal too. You will get a workshop evaluation form if you'd be so kind as to fill that out, and it's just an online form. That will go back to the national office back in Washington, and they kind of they adjust funding for chapters based on these responses. I think the national chapter was Southeast Chapter of the Year 2024, and I think we got an extra $5,000, which just bought us better lunches at all of our meetings. Check the calendar for what on our website for workshops and events, and that's it. Now here's what I was talking about. This PowerPoint will come with all this. So the business entity comparison table, this will get much deeper into sole proprietor, general partnership, limited partnerships, limited liabilities, C corps, S corps. So all these things that are necessary that you need to know about each one of those business structures are on this document right here. More stuff about the business entities. There's the one you could download and actually just start writing stuff into this. Your self-evaluation form, you can print this thing out. You don't have to, it's not in color anymore, so it takes a little less ink. A little deeper dive into your decision making, your planning, your vision statement, your mission statements, how those things are actually set up and what you want to look to, and examples. Principles of business creation, the people, processes, system structure, and there's your client questionnaire. Okay, maybe it's attached to the sheet now. So there's that. I think we had a note taken. Okay, we just had a couple comments, like the value proposition statement. Very good. So does anybody have any questions? This would be a good time just to, turn on the mic and fire away.
Okay, I'll ask a question.
Sure.
And we're doing movie night with my daughter, so I'm gonna leave my camera off for the moment.
All
But
right.
so okay, so have a small architecture practice, and it is outside of Memphis actually. And we have a piece of real estate that we have the opportunity to either lease out. We'll have our offices there, but we could lease out the main level to, other entrepreneurs, either retail or restaurant. And I cannot get the kind of the theme or the idea of a kind of a community cafe, corner cafe. It's in the downtown of this small town, and but and I'm trying to keep away from that because I don't know, word on the street is that restaurants are terrible and you can't, I don't know. But I feel like I have to work really hard as an architect to keep my business going. I'm a small business. We have 3 team members. but I also want to stay in my lane. Um, and not kind of dive in too much. I mean, do you have thoughts on people like if people start to, if you start to focus on too many things and you can't do anything well, or um and that's what this idea is driven around, community feedback. We now own this property at the corner of our downtown area, and everybody, it's like we would love to have a restaurant that serves real food that's not deep fried. Maybe it's just a sandwich during the day. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
every in the community wants to give their thoughts on what they want there. Of course, no one is interested in doing that, but it is kind of both a, it's a passion, and it's also a real estate investment play, and it's kind of continuing to build on the momentum of this small downtown. But you see there's lots of layers in that, like spouting out of things. Um, what are your thoughts?
Well, the point's taken. The restaurant business is tips to be is a, a business of passion. People who get into
Mhm.
that thing have a really strong desire just to do that. There's my cough. Um, but it becomes, if you decide to do this, it and juggling both existing business and the cafe business, it will be, it's a challenge, and it's quite possible one or both would suffer.
Mhm.
Um, my thing when I start, if I'm starting another deal, is finding somebody to partner with that will actually do the business.
Yeah. Kind of finding an operator potentially.
Yeah, to find somebody that can do that, and
Mhm.
that's one way. Finding good people, creating something where they have some kind of a partnership in it, and they're tied to the business. I've
Mhm.
always tried to start something that's in fact just hiring people.
Yeah, I
That's
guess you did mention about how, as a landlord, that you have done that before, kind of partner with businesses as the property owner to, yeah, I don't remember
yeah.
which business you were talking about, but yeah, you did reference that earlier. Mhm.
I find that as the property owner, and say, hey, anybody want to open a deal? I've got the property. You come in and you put your money in it, get their skin in the game,
Mhm.
and then let them, and then you just become a partner in this thing,
Mm.
and a consultant in there. I don't know, Cal, if you've got anything, pop in for you. But that's one way to take that space and monetize it, and
Mhm.
let somebody who actually has restaurant experience, because I think those kinds of things are a really good idea. It's just a sandwich shop,
Right.
coffee and some
Mhm.
light sandwiches, and in the morning, muffins.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
have a little restaurant in Cabo San Lucas, and Cafes do Mundo, and we serve muffins and granola, and waffles and coffee. And boy, for 10 years, that thing spun off so much money.
Hey,
Mm.
if I could chip in here,
Yeah, please.
uh, because I am a landlord, not commercial, but residential, so, here's what I would tell you. First of all, make sure you've got a lease that is rock solid. Get yourself an attorney who knows what they're doing with real estate to get that lease strap. Secondly, is figure out to what level of engagement you want to be involved in being a landlord, right? So Lee referred to being a property owner, which is completely different from being a landlord. You can own the property and not landlord it. You can have somebody do that for you. So
Mhm.
you got your other business going there, which is your principal business and your primary source
Mhm.
of income. I always tell people play your strength, right? So
Yep.
you're an architect and you got an architect business, you probably don't want to have to spend a whole lot of time doing something else, but owning the building can be, financially rewarding. You just have to give part of it away so that you don't have to live it, right?
Right.
And the other thing I would tell you is that the people in your community don't have a clue what they want. Your customers never know what they want. What customer ever told 3M company that they want a little piece of paper that's got sticky on the back of it? No.
Right. And now we can't live without it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, in my mind, if I was thinking about what you're thinking about, I would get an attorney, get rock solid lease, work with a business broker who specializes in whatever you think makes sense down there. I'm not saying some kind of a service enterprise that provides product isn't right, food products or drink products or whatever. And let those guys sort it out and and they can take their cut and you be the property owner and be happy.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So
Mhm.
it's kind of how do you position yourself based on your particular interests, needs, and time.
Awesome. Thank y'all for your feedback.
You bet. Anybody
Amanda
else?
just had her hand up.
Oh, Amanda.
Can't hear you. You mute. Look, can't hear you. You can use the chat box if you can't.
How about now?
Here.
Ah, we figured it out. First of all, thanks so much for the workshop this evening. I had no idea all these great resources were available, but when you spoke up, Cal, I was compelled to ask a question because I'm dabbling in real estate and leasing out my property. This will be my first property because I'm moving. And I have been doing a lot of research enough just to make me like slightly dangerous, getting my feet wet and opening a business. But I definitely need a mentor. I'm gonna fill out the form. I guess my question is about whether a sole proprietorship or an LLC should be my direction, or if I just don't do the business, like don't do the LLC and just rent it out personally. I don't know. That's just kind of, I plan to expand it at some point, but not necessarily in Tennessee. So I know that's complex. Like I want to get into real estate. This will be my first property.
So an LLC is probably the simplest, quickest way to give yourself some slight liability protection. And it's simply pass through revenue. So you're going to be taxed just like your personal income, which is easier, right, than having an SRC. In conjunction with an LLC, I would say make sure you get yourself an umbrella liability insurance policy. They're relatively cheap. You get like $1 million for $175 a year or something like that. Totally worth it to protect you, and then put the property in an LLC. Okay. And I don't know what you thought about doing this, but I'll just give you a couple of tips. Okay. Based on a lot of experience, mostly good experience, some of it educational. Try to figure out what your tenant looks like in advance. Who's your target market, right? So what's the kind of person that I want to lease this property to? Because I will tell you that a bad tenant is the absolute worst nightmare, right? And they're damn hard to get rid of. So, and can be very expensive. And then the other thing I would tell you to think about in advance is how leveraged up you want to be, because the property will sit vacant for periods of time, and depending on how leveraged up you are, you'll experience negative cash flow that in a matter of 2 months can wipe out your year net, right? So think about that too.
Yeah, that's all stuff I've certainly been worried about. Thank you for the feedback. That's good information. I appreciate it.
Anybody else? Well, if we've got no more questions, we can wrap this thing up. Once again, do appreciate everybody, your attention and our attendance this evening. Hopefully there was something in there that provided some value to you. And so we'll sign off right now, and May we'll see you in the SCORE program. Well, we had one more, trying to start a home-based business under the Tennessee Food Freedom Act. Yeah, there's something we would probably, Eric, that I've never started. I've not been in the food business. We have a couple people in our organization who have been. But yeah, you're asking a question that we'd have to go to a subject matter expert for, unless Cal's got some. Nope. That's really explicit information that we would have to go find somebody. We have access to people who could say this.
So Eric, I'm trying to figure out the question. I mean, instead of using your home address, are you saying instead of using your home address as where you're actually doing the work, or as the address for your registered business? I mean, your registered business address can be a PO box.
Yeah, true. If that's the intent, yeah, wherever you, yeah, they don't care, as long as the government can, wherever you register your business, they can get a hold of you. I don't know if there's any specific requirements under that particular food law that requires you to do something.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the with the law that you refer to, but if your question is about your okay, I see your answer, yes, no box. Again, don't have familiarity with the law, so I really can't speak to it.
Yeah, that's one that if you got a mentor, we can go through that kind of process, or actually find somebody. And it's another thing, what in a lot of cases, just if there is somebody in administration, there's somebody in Tennessee that is an administrator for that particular act, and finding them, and then contact your local state representative, and they can direct you to these kinds of things. It's another thing that it's their job and responsibilities, and it's in their best interest is to see that, small businesses get the information they need. But that's something a mentor may be able to help you with. Okay. All right, Eric. Okay, folks, I think that's we covered it. We will sign off and wish you all a good evening. Thanks, Cal.